The late afternoon sun filtered through the thinning leaves of the Moscow park, turning the concrete pathways into bands of golden light. Ekaterina sat stiffly on the wooden bench, her wool coat pulled tight around her shoulders as though she could shield herself from more than the October chill. Sitting beside her, her daughter Anastasia stared at the ground, oblivious to the quiet beauty around them. It felt to Ekaterina as though the entire world had narrowed to this single moment. A mother, a daughter, silence stretching like barbed wire. She wanted to reach out, to take the girl's cold trembling hand in her own, but even that simple gesture felt dangerous. In the Soviet Union, love often arrived disguised as authority, and fear dressed itself as protection. You skipped classes again. Ekaterina's voice came out harder than intended, sharp as an iron key turning inside a lock. Anastasia did not respond. Her hair fell like a curtain between them, shielding her expression. The girl's fingers curled tight against her cheek, the gesture that had begun in childhood when she felt cornered. Now it only reminded Ekaterina that her daughter was slipping away, inch by inch, choice by choice. You think they will not notice, she continued, lowering her voice. But they do. They always notice. Her husband used to say the same thing. The state misses nothing. Even when he was dying, fever burning the life out of him, he had whispered warnings about neighbors and factory foremen and the watchful eyes of the party. She had laughed back then, believing paranoia had carved itself into his mind. Now she understood he had been right all along. A wind gusted through the park, scattering the yellow leaves across their feet. The breeze carried the faint sound of children laughing near a broken carousel. A reminder of simpler illusions. Your teacher came to the factory today, Ekaterina said. He said you have been drawing inappropriate things. Still no reaction. The silence scraped against her nerves. Posters, she added flatly. Posters criticizing our government. The words tasted like ash. Speaking them felt dangerous. Her gaze darted around, searching for watching eyes. A man feeding pigeons. An elderly woman knitting from a frayed ball of yarn. Two soldiers smoking near the park entrance. Too many ears. Too many shadows. Anastasia finally raised her eyes. They were blue, glacial, and full of quiet fire. They are just drawings, she said. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. They are ideas. Ideas were currency in the West. Here, they could be a prison sentence. Do you understand what they will do? Ekaterina hissed, leaning in. They take children like you from their homes. They question them for hours. They force confessions. They break families. You think I do not know? The girl snapped, her voice cracking. I live in the same country as you. Ekaterina flinched. It felt like a slap, not because of the words, but the raw hopelessness beneath them. After a long pause, she spoke again, quieter. Why would you risk everything for a cause that does not belong to you? Because this life is not living. Anastasia turned her face away. I want to breathe. Ekaterina's throat tightened. She had once wanted the same. As a young girl she had dreamed of ballet, of bright lights and a stage where music drowned out fear. But the state had cut those dreams down before they could bloom, redirecting her into factory labor, quotas, and survival. Wanting more had been a luxury she could not afford. What if there is no more? She asked. Anastasia gave a bitter little laugh, full of resignation too old for her years. Then I will make it. Her defiance terrified Ekaterina. Courage was a virtue only in stories. In the real Soviet Union, courage was a death sentence. The soldiers near the gate shifted, glancing their direction. Ekaterina's heart raced. Her voice softened, pleading, almost praying. Promise me you will stop. Anastasia did not speak. Her silence was the loudest answer she could have given. Ekaterina stood abruptly. We are going home. She expected the girl to follow out of habit. Instead, Anastasia remained still, eyes locked on something distant, something invisible to her mother. Just leave me here a little longer, she murmured. Ekaterina hesitated. Every instinct screamed that leaving her alone was a mistake. Yet she also knew that forcing her would only widen the distance between them. I will be back in 15 minutes, she said. No more. As Ekaterina walked away, she felt the cold gaze of the soldiers follow her. The fear inside her chest grew heavy enough to crush breath. She wondered if Anastasia could feel it too. She wondered if that was precisely why her daughter refused to obey. The wind smelled like metal and earth, like rusted playgrounds and the smoke from distant factories. Anastasia watched her mother walk away, Footsteps stiff and nervous, body tense like a wire ready to snap. Guilt pinched at her chest, but another feeling rose stronger, a fierce, aching need to be understood. She pulled her legs up onto the bench and hugged her knees, staring at the sky that never changed. Same gray, same boundaries, same rules. The whole world felt like a room with no windows. She thought of the posters again. The ones she had hidden in the old boiler room behind the school. She had sketched a dove breaking through iron bars, a pair of hands reaching upward, a girl's face turned toward the sun. Simple images, but in this country symbols held power that words could not. Her teacher had found one. Then he had found her. The memory returned in sharp fragments. He had stood over her desk, jaw clenched, voice low. You think the Komsomol will allow this? Do you think the state will laugh and pat your head? She had stared right back and said nothing. He had grabbed her wrist and hissed, "You are playing with fire, Anastasia. And when you burn, others burn with you." She had not been afraid then. She was afraid now. Not for herself. For her mother. Ekaterina was a paradox. Tough as steel, yet fragile in the places where love lived. The state had taken enough from her already. Anastasia did not want to be the next sacrifice demanded by Soviet obedience. Her fingers tightened into fists. She wished her mother could see what she saw, that silence was not safety. Silence only meant surrender. A sudden crunch of gravel snapped her attention to the soldiers by the entrance. One of them spoke into a small radio, eyes trained on her bench. Anastasia felt a wave of cold roll down her spine. The air seemed to shrink around her. They know. Of course they know. Even the leaves in the park sounded dangerous now, scraping across pavement like whispered warnings. A man approached, a stranger, coat buttoned high, shoes too polished. He walked with the quiet assurance of someone who belonged to doors locked from the inside. He paused near the bench. You are Ekaterina Morozova's daughter, yes? He asked. The question was casual in tone, but his eyes were sharp. Searching. Recording. She nodded, her voice caught in her throat. Your mother is worried about you, he continued, lips curving in a smile that held no warmth. A girl as expressive as you should be careful. Her nails dug into her palms. I am careful. We can help with that. He leaned closer. Talent is a gift. It must serve the right purpose. She forced her gaze away from him. I draw for myself. No one draws for themselves, he replied softly. Not anymore. His footsteps receded, echoing long. After he disappeared behind a row of trees. Anastasia could not breathe. The world had closed in, exactly as he intended. She stood suddenly, adrenaline shaking her limbs. The soldiers were still watching. Go home. Run. Do something. A familiar voice called her name. Her mother, returning faster than promised. Fear must have changed her pace. Anastasia exhaled shakily, relief flooding her body. When Ekaterina reached her, she grabbed her daughter by the arms, desperation burning in her eyes. What happened? Who was that man? Anastasia hesitated. She did not want to say the word. KGB was never spoken aloud. No one, she lied. Just someone who knew you. Her mother's face whitened. Do not lie to me. He wants me to draw, Anastasia said, voice trembling despite her efforts. But not what I believe in. What they believe in. Ekaterina closed her eyes, pain carving deep lines across her brow. Then she pulled Anastasia into a sudden embrace, as if she could shield her from the entire state. You will not draw any more, she whispered, voice hollow with fear. Promise me. Anastasia said nothing. Her silence was a vow. And a threat. Night had fallen over Moscow like a heavy curtain, and the apartment walls felt thinner than ever. Ekaterina stood by the small kitchen window, watching the silhouettes of apartment blocks stretch like dark sentinels against the sky. Behind her, Anastasia sat quietly at the table, sketchbook closed, hands folded in her lap. Too quiet, too still, the calm before something irreversible. Ekaterina could still feel the stranger's presence from the park, the way his gaze weighed each breath. It was a feeling she remembered well. The same feeling that haunted her youth. The state did not forget. It waited. She turned toward her daughter. We have to be careful now, she said. It is not only school anymore. Anastasia nodded, but her eyes were far away. Ekaterina sat down across from her, hands trembling slightly. Do you trust me? She asked. The question hung there, fragile. Anastasia blinked. Of course. Ekaterina exhaled, relief mixed with fear. Then listen. You must hide everything you have drawn. Tonight. Burn it if you must. The girl's face hardened. No. My drawings are the only part of me that is real. Ekaterina's voice sharpened. Your life is real. My life is not mine. Anastasia's shout cut through the kitchen like glass. Both froze. Ekaterina swallowed her rising panic. She softened her tone. I do not want to lose you, she whispered. Anastasia looked down, tears glossing her lashes. I wish you understood what it's like. Feeling like your bones are prisons. For a long moment, Ekaterina said nothing. Then quietly, I do understand. Anastasia looked up, surprised. Ekaterina forced herself to continue. Before you were born, I drew too. I wanted to dance, to see the world, to be free. Her voice shook. The system took all of it away from me. It will not hesitate to take you too. Anastasia stared, like seeing her mother for the first time. A crack appeared in the wall of anger between them. The phone suddenly rang, loud and sharp. Ekaterina flinched. Anastasia stiffened. Every ring sounded like a warning. On the fourth ring, Ekaterina lifted the receiver. A man's voice. Smooth. Too polite. Comrade Morozova, we would like you and your daughter to visit the district office tomorrow. A friendly conversation. The kind of friendliness that killed. Her throat dried. Yes, we will come. She set the phone down carefully, as if sudden movement might shatter their future. Anastasia's voice quaked. What did they want? Control, Ekaterina replied. And obedience. Anastasia's chair scraped the floor as she stood. We cannot go. Ekaterina closed her eyes. If we refuse, they will come for us. Silence. Then Anastasia whispered, then we leave. Run. Anywhere but here. Ekaterina stared at her daughter. That impossible bravery. That dangerous hope. She felt both terror and pride. Sleep, she whispered. We decide at dawn. Neither of them slept. Before sunrise, she packed quietly. A few clothes. Her pencils. A single sketchbook. The one with the dove and the light. She found her mother sitting awake on the couch, coat already on, eyes red from a night of wrestling with ghosts. Ekaterina looked up, something new in her expression. Determination. We go west, she said. There is a man I knew once, long ago. He helps people disappear. Anastasia nodded, heart pounding. Not fear. Movement. Possibility. They slipped outside before the hall lights clicked on, footsteps soft as secrets. The city was still asleep, smoke rising from chimneys into a pale dawn sky. They walked fast, avoiding soldiers, avoiding eye contact. Every sound felt too loud. Every shadow felt alive. At the tram stop, a factory siren wailed in the distance. A reminder of the life they were abandoning. Ekaterina held Anastasia's hand, grip firm. When the tram screeched to a halt, they climbed aboard and sat near the back. A pair of soldiers entered, settling only 3 rows ahead. Instinctively, Anastasia lowered her gaze. Her pulse thrashed in her ears. Then the tram lurched forward. Moscow began to blur outside the windows, gray courtyards melting into a web of iron tracks. For the first time in years, Anastasia felt like the city could not hold her down. After 20 minutes, they stepped off near a row of old apartment blocks. Ekaterina led the way into a crumbling entryway, up 2 flights of stairs, and knocked softly on a dark green door. A lock clicked. A man with silver hair and weary eyes opened it. The moment he saw Ekaterina, shock widened his expression. Katya. After all this time, she nodded. We need your help, Mikhail. He let them in without another word. The apartment smelled of tobacco and old paper. Faded maps covered one wall. Mikhail motioned for them to sit. They came to me once, too, he said quietly. When you left the ballet academy, he did not finish. Anastasia's eyes widened. Her mother had danced. Ekaterina looked away, ashamed. I told her none of it mattered. Mikhail shook his head. Dreams always matter. He turned to Anastasia. You drew something they did not like, yes. She nodded. Then you have something they fear. That is why they chase you. His voice held a fierce admiration. He retrieved a small metal box and placed it on the table. Inside, forged travel papers, blank IDs, train tickets. If you want to live free, he said, you must be brave enough to leave everything behind. Ekaterina's hand tightened around her daughter's. Anastasia whispered, we are ready. Mikhail nodded toward the window. The train leaves before sunset. Head for the border. Do not stop. Do not look back. For the first time, freedom felt like a destination. By evening, they stood on a crowded platform, the winter twilight sinking into the rails. Loudspeakers crackled propaganda through the air, but Ekaterina barely heard it. She watched the crowd nervously. Too many faces. Too many eyes. Her heart hammered like a factory press. The train screeched toward them, steam billowing, the scent of coal thick in the air. Anastasia reached for her hand. Then she saw them. Two men in suits, gliding through the platform like wolves. One of them, the same smooth-faced stranger from the park, locked eyes with her daughter. Ekaterina's blood froze. They pushed through the crowd, bumping shoulders, ignoring shouted curses. The whistle blared. Doors hissing open. Ekaterina shoved Anastasia ahead. The men broke into a sprint. Anastasia leapt into the nearest carriage. Ekaterina stumbled behind, arms shaking, lungs burning. A hand grasped her coat, one of the agents. She twisted violently, fabric tearing, and fell into the train just as the doors slammed shut. The stranger's cold smile hovered on the other side of the glass as the train pulled away. Ekaterina collapsed into a seat, breath ragged. Anastasia wrapped her arms around her. "You did it," the girl whispered. "We're on our way." Ekaterina held her daughter tightly, tears hidden in her hair. "Yes," she murmured, though her heart hammered in warning. Freedom was not won yet. But it was closer than ever. The train rattled through the night, carrying them toward unfamiliar stars. Anastasia pressed her cheek to the icy window, watching the city fade into shadows. Every passing mile felt like another chain breaking loose. Her mother slept lightly beside her, tense even in dreams, but Anastasia saw something soft on her face now. Something like hope. She took her sketchbook from her bag and quietly opened it. On a fresh page, she drew a woman holding the hand of a girl, both walking into sunlight that cut through barbed wire. The lines flowed easily, like breathing. Ekaterina stirred, noticing. "You brought it," she whispered. Anastasia nodded. "I could not leave myself behind." Her mother brushed a hand over the drawing, eyes glistening. "These hands, they are strong," she murmured. "They could hold the world if it let them." Anastasia smiled. "Maybe one day it will." Outside, the first glimpse of dawn touched the horizon, pale gold spreading across the edges of the world. Ekaterina spoke softly, voice full of something she once buried deep. "Whatever happens next, we face it together." Anastasia leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. The warmth of that promise wrapped around her like a blanket. For the first time, she believed it. The barbed wire of their past was still behind them. The open sky waited ahead.